All right, well, let's get started.
All right. As Stacy said, I am Mary Borr, and I'm a professor in teacher education. This is my 16th year at NDSU, and I've been teaching online asynchronous for a lot of that time, actually. And I really do like teaching online. I like the organization aspect of it and trying to make it so that it's easy for students to find things and to figure out what they need to be doing. I also feel that sometimes the asynchronous online lends itself to more equal participation among students because they all have the option or the responsibility in a discussion board. You don't necessarily have as many people monopolizing, or that they can't sometimes hide as easily as they might in a regular classroom. And I do find that you can form relationships and you start to learn different things about them, even though they're not physically in your classroom. I'm going to go through several things that I feel makes a asynchronous online class a lot more, allow students to be a lot more successful in it. First of all, you need to make it obvious where to start. And you might be thinking, well, students are taking online courses all the time. They know how to do this. Actually, different instructors might set up their Blackboard courses differently. And they might have taken courses, but it didn't really look like what yours did. And so they do need some instructions, especially at first, so that they know exactly what they're doing. And even making it obvious where to start kind of gives a good first impression for them too, because if they're starting out the class and they can't figure out what to do from the very start, that's going to be frustration probably throughout the whole course, just because they had a bad very first experience with it. Thoughtful placement of materials, so it's easy for them to find things. Personally, I like to put things into modules so that they know, okay, this 2 weeks, I need to work on what's in this particular folder. They don't need to go, okay, I need to look under the assignments, and then I need to look under the readings, and then I need to look under all these different areas. It's just all in one spot for them. Clear and attainable goals and objectives, so they kind of know why they're being asked to do different things, making those transparent to them. And with Blackboard too, it gives a nice spot for them to be able to see those goals and objectives every time they go into the particular module. And even within the modules, having some routine so that they kind of know what to expect from one week to another. And especially during the pandemic, when so many things were unsure, and it's going to take people a while to kind of recover, the more stability they can have, the better, I feel, because they know that, okay, I know I'm going to need to do some readings in this module. I know I'm going to need to do this and that, and it's going to kind of follow that same routine. Even having a standard method of submitting assignments, again, so that they can, actually all of these are so that they can focus on the content. They're not confused as to how they should do something. They can focus their mind on the content instead of how to do something. And you might need specific instructions, especially about submitting assignments the first few times. You might be able to draw back on that a little bit later on, after they've submitted several. They might have that routine down, but then also keeping in mind that for some students, they might be taking all online courses. So they might have 5 or 6 online courses, and it is easy to forget, okay, for this class, I need to do it this way. This class, I need to do it this way. And it doesn't take that much extra time to copy and paste instructions from one module to the next. I'm going to stop sharing that and to show you an example of some of these things I've been talking about. Here's an example of showing them exactly where to start. The classes that officially started have it tells them exactly, go to the Blackboard page, click on the course modules tab. Over on the left side from player, click on module 1 so they know exactly where they need to go, what they need to do to get started with that course. And they're not getting lost in there. Within the course modules, like I said, I like to put them into like one folder. I'll show you an example here. Oh, sorry, module 2. And I do kind of give a little overview of what exactly is in there. So if they're looking for something later on, they don't have to go into each module. They can kind of look at the outside part of it. And each module I have starting out with some objectives. And they usually have a couple sections that say read, one that says discuss, one that says create or write or whatever they might need to do to kind of give that a similar format, and so they know what each thing is about. If it's something that is going to have to be turned in, I try to put the date that they're due after it so that it's obvious that, okay, this is something that needs to be turned in, and these are the dates I need to turn it in. Also, making sure, again, especially at the early part of the semester, that they have some instruction on exactly what to do. This one, clicking on the word discuss or click on the discussion board tab on the left side of the screen. Hopefully, eventually they won't need that particular instruction, but at first they might need that because different instructors might want them to access discussion board on a different way. And for submitting assignments too, clicking on the words membership campaign and how to attach their document. A lot of the courses I teach are master's level courses, and they are with students who are across the United States. And so they might, actually, there's a good chance they've never seen NDSU's Blackboard before. And so for them, it's even more important to let them know exactly how to access something. And then just to kind of show you some of that routine I have within it, or sameness from one to another. We have readings again, something they need to watch, discuss, another create for their assignment. The next thing is to try to get them engaged. They recommend to use some low stakes assignments at first, and low stakes means that there's not a lot of work that they're going to necessarily put into it, but also it's not worth a lot of points. It's basically to get them to form that habit of checking into Blackboard and to completing assignments and just getting them more comfortable within the environment. And they find that if there's more low stakes assignments at the beginning, it gets students more engaged and they continue to stay engaged. And when those bigger assignments come along, they're more likely to complete those assignments. Requiring or rewarding frequent check-ins, and this could also be with things like the discussion board. After a few years, I've found that for the discussion board, if I want them to do any replying, I don't just tell them, you need to have your post and reply to 2 or 3 people by next Tuesday. This summer, I'm telling them you need to have your initial post done by Friday, and you need to reply to 2 to 3 others by next Tuesday. Because as you can imagine, what happens, you have those people who are always going to wait and do it that next Tuesday on the last day. Those who are early get done with their initial posting, and then they're sitting around waiting for someone else to post so that they can reply to someone. And they're getting frustrated because they don't have anyone to reply to yet. So by having them having a different separate dates for when their initial post is and when their replies are due has helped out with that a lot. Breaking larger assignments into smaller chunks makes it more manageable. Um, Also, it gives you the opportunity to give feedback if it is something that is very large, and if they don't do the first part right, the rest of it's going to go awry. Making sure that you are able to get in there and give them feedback. When possible, trying to incorporate any kind of problem solving, active exploration, collaboration, simulations. And that obviously all really depends upon what your content area is as to what types of things you might do with that. But trying to get them involved in some way instead of just listening to a lecture or reading a textbook, actually applying that in some method. And also using games to help them learn the material. And again, I'm going to get out of this screen, and I want to show you a game type of website that I found about a year ago, and that we've used several times, that really is pretty cool. It's not necessarily the greatest as far as the graphics and things like that. It's pretty basic, but what you do at this website is students go in and write questions. They fill in an answer, and they also can fill in an explanation of why that answer is the right answer. And then the rest of the class comes in and tries to answer their questions. And they can get points by answering their classmates' questions correctly, or by, the number of how many number of times that they tried answering questions, the number of questions that they post. They can also rate each other's questions as to whether or not they wrote good questions or not. And just some examples. And the site is called PeerWise. If you just Google PERWISE, PeerWise. This is a question that a student wrote. And this is what it looks like when you would go in to answer that question. There's their question, a formal proposal to a meeting that takes certain action. Other students go in and decide which answer is the correct one. I'm going to guess D. I got it right. If they get it wrong, though, they can retry again. And here's where the author could provide an explanation. In some of my classes, I've had them made them have an explanation, so I understood why they knew it was the right answer. You can write comments on it. You can rate the difficulty. And again, this is what students can do with each other. And so if you are have a lot of terms that they might be confused with, or if there's a lot of very the only kind of questions you can put in here are like multiple choice questions. So if your content leads itself well to multiple choice questions, having the students go in there and quiz each other instead of you having to make some type of a quiz or some type of a review for them. They're putting it in there and they're quizzing each other, and they're going in and seeing if they know the content based on what their classmates post. So it's kind of a unique little game site that can really work with any content area. And one last note about engagement. Part of the engagement and having them work together and some of these things is that they need time to process the material. And with some of these things, what we're really trying to do is to make sure that they're not trying to just complete the course in one weekend. Like I hear students talking about sometimes, if you just post everything all at once, some of them will go in there and say, okay, I'm going to try to do it all, this whole thing this week. But by having some of those low stakes in, if they have to have frequent check-ins at certain times, things like that, it helps give them some time to process as well. Collaboration. and they don't always like collaborating in online classes, but it's good for them. And usually we get more when we work together as a team than if just a person is learning on their own. And I always, let them know too that, just because it's asynchronous does not mean it's independent study. They have nothing to do with each other, really. It just means that you can work on it at 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, whichever is your preference. I like to keep mine somewhat teacher paced so that they can work on it anytime, but you're working on this module on this week or during these 2 weeks. And some reasons for that is so that it keeps them on track for discussions, so that you're not having someone who is posting, this week and someone else who posts on the same discussion 6 weeks later, and they can't have that interaction back and forth, really. Important to give them something valid to discuss. If you have scenarios or videos or podcasts or something like that, that they can discuss and actually apply the concepts, that's helpful. I have a master's level class on adolescent learners that we watch a TV show that only ran for 1 year. It was called Freaks and Geeks. It was in like the mid 90s about middle school and high school students. And I've actually had them as part of their requirements. It used to be free on Netflix, which was great. But now the only way you can get it is if you can find it somewhere online or to buy the DVDs for that 1 year. And but I've still had them get that because we've lined it up so that they watch basically the whole season. I've arranged the class so it follows along the season. And when we're talking about relationships and adolescent boy-girl relationships or romantic relationships, adolescents, that particular Freaks and Geeks episode focuses on that as well. And it gives them something, even though it's just a TV show, it gives them something to apply those concepts to. And it makes their discussions deeper. And I think they have kind of more fun with those discussions, more willing to participate in the discussions, I guess. Having students complete an assignment as a group. I have had them write some papers as a group. Again, they don't necessarily like it. And yes, it is difficult. But sometimes, learning is to learn more and to gain more from it. It is difficult, and that's okay. If you have a way to make their work public, they're more likely to put more effort into it. And with my content area, a lot of times we write lesson plans. I get permission from everyone in the class first to share their lesson plans, but that way too, as well as sharing it, making it public, and wanting to do better because of that, they're also receiving lesson plans from their classmates. And so if there's 20 in the class, all of a sudden they have 20 lesson plans that they can use. And peer review, having them go in and look at each other's, possibly using the same grading scale, a week before or so when it's actually going to be due, so that they can have the opportunity to give each other feedback. Important to kind of guide them in giving feedback to make sure that they're stating things in a positive manner, but at the same time making sure that they're not just saying, oh, it's all wonderful, when maybe it isn't. Maybe there are some things that could be improved. There's a couple of really cool things on Discussion Board. If you don't know about them, some bonus things here for you. This is in the editing forum, or when you're creating a forum in that area. There is a setting that says participants must create a thread in order to view other threads in this forum. And I always use that as the default now. First of all, I know that they're not going to copy off each other that way. Also, I found especially my undergraduates really appreciate that because they feel like they can't be accused of copying off each other. If there's something already posted, they might go in there and look and say, well, I can't write about that because he did. I can't write about that because she did. They can put their original thoughts and know that, okay, it's not being influenced by anyone else, or it's okay if somebody else had those same initial thoughts. It's not that I had read theirs ahead of time. And so it kind of made them feel better about putting what their true thoughts were instead of trying to come up with something different than what other people put. So as soon as they post their initial thread, then they can see what everyone else had. The other part is the rubrics. I'm not sure if I don't think you can see the rubric, right? Not right now. Okay. Using the rubrics within Blackboard, I think saves a lot of time. And the discussion board rubrics, you can just select that same rubric for each discussion that you have, so you don't have to create anything new. And this was, you have to fill in all the information. I think there are some kind of generic ones that are put in there, but I went in and changed that somewhat. But that makes things, makes it a lot easier to grade those discussion boards too, to be able to go through and just click on the category that you feel describes their posting. And it's also important to humanize the course, having your students give some personal introductions, somewhat related to class, and of course, nothing forced, and they don't have to tell you all their deep history about everything about them. But it just makes it so that they can kind of realize, that we're all humans in this course. When I put my students into like groups, especially groups that are going to be working together the rest of the year, I refer them back to that first discussion where they introduced each other so that they can learn more about the other group members. Also important to share aspects of your own life. For example, pictures of your extremely handsome dog. And just other fun things so that they can see you as a real human person as well. That there is someone behind the course, that it's not just automatically set up and, someone might come in and do the grading or whatever, but to know that, you are a real person behind it too. And offering some flexibility. Again, I think it's going to take a while before all the effects of pandemic are gone, and people are still going to need that flexibility. I mean, we've been dealing with a lot of stress for quite a while now, and it kind of builds up and everything. But, I always tell them, you can, and this is just my philosophy, you can turn things in late, but I need to know ahead of time, and I have them create their new deadline. So that way, if they're missing that second deadline, it's like, well, that you created that one on your own. So, and part of this humanizing the course is that there's a saying that says, students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so, they need to know that you're a human being and that you might mess up too sometimes, and I always tell them, if you see things that don't look right in my course, let me know. Because I do take copy courses from previous years, and the biggest thing is making sure you get those dates changed, and so I tell them, if something doesn't look right, let me know. I'm just human. I can make mistakes too. So what questions do we have?
Mary, do you give points for things like peer-wise? And if so, how do you handle those logistics?
I did give points for peer-wise. I had them post like X number of questions. I didn't, and they had to go in and answer X number of questions as well. It was a pretty low stakes type of thing. It was more of a participation. If you did it, you got points for that. I didn't have them like rate each other's questions, and they have like a little leaderboard you can look at and things like that. I didn't worry about that part. It was just getting in there and trying it out and answering at least some of those. Any other questions?
Hey, this is a good presentation. This is Cheryl Wackenheim, and I'm just curious. I didn't hear every word you said because I came in a little late, but I wondered about how you handled the assessments. Did you talk about that?
I did not. I don't give tests very often. We do more projects, papers, things like that. But there is one class where I do give online tests. And what I do with those, I've found is some of the questions I give are multiple choice questions. But for the multiple choice questions, they have to, as well as choosing what they think is the right answer, they have to write out why that one is the right answer. And they also have to specifically write out why each of the other options are not right answers. Or in that particular one too, class, they need to use their textbook. I make it so that it is an open textbook because they're probably going to use their textbook anyway. But I say, okay, in chapter 10, it talks about these terms. Here's a scenario. Use 10 of those terms from the chapter applied to this scenario to show that they understand what those terms are. I try to make it things that those types of questions are ones that they can't really cheat at, and they're very personalized. It's an objective true false multiple choice test. That's a little bit tougher to make sure that they're not cheating in some way, but there's a lot of explanation. I make them give them a lot of explanation behind it. And they're mostly master's level students that I do that for.
Got an easy one for you, Mary. Justin wants to know if PeerWise is free.
Yes, it is.
How do you share student work when they submit individual assignments?
Again, if they have agreed to let me share, on Blackboard, I just have another tab that says like lesson plans or, whatever projects or whatever it might be. And before I grade them, I move them into, or I move an ungraded copy into that, or copy and save it to my computer. And then I upload it into that spot on Blackboard, basically. So it is a little bit of work to do that, but it's not too bad.
That is our time today. Thank you so much, Mary, for presenting to us, and the virtual clap. Thank you for presenting. We'll see you all back in the main room to choose your next session.